Your support helps us bring you programs you love. Go to wyomingpbs.org, click on Support, and become a sustaining member or an annual member. It's easy and secure. Thank you.
On college campuses across the country, there's an intersection of academics and athletics. And when budget dollars are tight, that intersection can have a little friction. We'll take stock of the University of Wyoming's athletic program in a discussion with its Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Tom Burman. Also, at the top of the show, we'll hear from the President of the Board of Trustees at the University of Wyoming, John MacPherson, on the relevance of athletics in tough budget times. The University of Wyoming Cowboys and Cowgirls in the Mountain West Conference. It's next on Wyoming Chronicle.
My name is John MacPherson, and I am President of the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees. In response to your question, obviously these are very trying times, not only for the university, but for the entire state. And there is a balancing act that takes place among all of the functions of the university, and athletics is one of the functions of the university. It is, in my opinion, a very important function of the university. When we say the University of Wyoming, we've got to remember that it's the University of Wyoming. It's not the University of Laramie or the University of Saratoga, where I'm from. It's the university for the entire state. And in that context, it's important that we not lose sight of the fact that athletics for the state of Wyoming brings the whole state together. It's a unifying function of bringing the whole state together, makes people proud to be a part of the university, to be supportive of the university, and to partake in athletic university functions. It is my opinion that the university is competing at the proper level. Part of being a participant in Division I, the result of that is that we see increased fan support, we see increased financial support from donors, we see increased financial support from the legislature, and it's tough to be Division I. But on the other hand, a university being the only university in the state, that's the proper place for the University of Wyoming to be. In my opinion, the legislature is the real representative of the people and speaks for the people, and the fact that the legislature has seen fit to take an interest in athletics and to finance athletics and to make sure that athletics at Wyoming functions speaks volumes about how the people in the state of Wyoming really feel about athletics. So that it's not just the university, it's not just Laramie, but it's the entire state of Wyoming.
And our thanks to John MacPherson, the President of the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees. We're pleased now to be visiting with the Director of Intercollegiate Athletics at the University of Wyoming, Tom Burman, a post you've now held for 10 years.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Tom. I want to cut right to the chase relative to the budget constraints that the athletic department is facing, as is the entire university and, in fact, the state of Wyoming. In June, I've read where you had thought at the time that the budget cuts that were given to Wyoming athletics by the legislature were something that you could do with, and you didn't believe that it would affect the competitiveness of the Cowboys and Cowgirls. And now, Wyoming competes in 17 Division I sports. There have been more cuts. That have been mandated. In fact, $35 million to the University of Wyoming in total, of which the athletic department has had to bore some of those cuts. Right. What's it meant to the department?
Well, the first round of cuts, which we deemed on campus as the penny plan, which I thought was a little bit of a misnomer, it was a lot more than pennies, but that was $420,000 to UW Athletics. We were able to manage that in a fashion that I don't think it impacted our competitiveness. I don't really think it impacted the student-athlete experience, which is our mission. We're trying to prevent the student-athletes from from being damaged by the budget cuts. The second phase, which are the new announcements that we have to cut $1.2 million or in that range of budget reductions starting next fiscal year. The Financial Crisis Advisory Committee is working through that process right now. They will have a recommendation to the President sometime in October. But we're operating under the assumption that we'll have a $1.2 million budget reduction starting July 1st. Those are tough, and they are starting to have an impact. I don't believe they have an impact on our competitiveness, but they are starting to have an impact on the experience student athletes have. We are not filling positions in a few areas. When people leave, we've held on some positions. We've changed the way we travel. We're starting to look at things a little differently than we did previously. In the short term, that budget reduction will not have an impact that the public will notice, and I can look you in the eye and say it's not going to be an excuse for us for being poor in a sport. If it lasts for years, then it becomes a greater challenge, because those inflation is always going to occur, and it occurs probably at a greater rate in intercollegiate athletics. So others are growing and we're going backwards. We can't do that forever, but we can do it for some time.
Dr. Lori Nichols, of course, is a new president here at the University of Wyoming. She's been here now for a few months. Tom, what direction has she given you relative to athletics here at the University of Wyoming?
She values intercollegiate athletics. She values it in many regards. She understands what it does for campus morale, campus community, outreach around the state, marketing of students, marketing marketing the brand of the University of Wyoming, Cowboys and Cowgirls. She values all of that. She also values what we do for developing young people. You know, we have 400 plus student athletes. We develop leaders, and we develop young people to go out and do great things. And so she values it. On the other hand, she doesn't value it at the expense of other parts of campus. So she is looking at athletics and saying, you're going to take a budget cut, and it's incumbent upon you and your team, Tom, to develop a strategy that allows this program to continue to grow and continue to get better, but we're going to take budget cuts.
Do you believe a year from now, Tom, that we'll have still 17 intercollegiate sports at the University of Wyoming?
Absolutely.
Okay. What would be the ramifications, or how do you look at whether or not it's viable to keep all programs? How do you judge?
Well, when you're at 17, you only can eliminate one, because you have to be at 16 to be a Division I FCS program, or FBS program, excuse me. The issue is the sports that could be on the discussion, on the docket for elimination. Those are sports where student athletes are paying tuition for part of their scholarship. They're not full scholarship student athletes. So let's just say, hypothetically, we were going to look at men's, and for Title IX purposes, it has to be a male sport. So you're looking at men's swimming, men's track and field, wrestling. Those kids are all paying to go to school at the University of Wyoming. So the analysis has to include a revenue component that is lost by the institution, because all of those kids would transfer. I mean, nationally, when you look at it, when a program is dropped, 90% of the kids walk away from the campus immediately as soon as there's the next possible break. And they transfer somewhere else and compete immediately. So there's a lost revenue component that comes to the institution. And then there is obviously some savings. But for example, in the swimming side of things, you're still going to have a women's swimming team, because you have to. So you got coaches, you got staffing, you got travel, you got pool maintenance, etc. Same on the track and field side. Long term, I believe that the NCAA will move the minimum level from 16 to 17 in the next 3 to 5 years. I believe they will do that.
Briefly, why do they want to do that? With budget pressures that not only the University of Wyoming, but many other non-Power 5 schools are facing.
Because the Power 5 schools' budgets are growing, and they want to provide greater opportunities. And unfortunately, right or wrong, the Power 5 drives the bus. And so it wouldn't surprise me if in the next 3 to 5, 6, 7 years, they said the minimum to be an NCAA Division I school is going from 17 to 18. Who knows if that'll happen? But you don't want to be in that situation and have to add again.
Sure. Let's talk about the Power 5 conferences versus where the Mountain West Conference is today. To me, it was highlighted in this discussion about whether CSU is a candidate to join the Big 12. Their Mountain West Conference payout is now similar to Wyoming's, I believe, around, give or take, $3 million a year in TV revenue, jumped to $30 million or more per year. First, Tom, can Wyoming then compete against those schools that have massive advantages with revenue? And why should it?
Yeah, the answer is day in and day out, no. But we never have, or since the 1960s, Group of 5 schools have not been able to compete against the Power 5 schools day in and day out. There are stories of Boise States, the Northern Illinois, who have had great runs, but for schools to think they have been competing against the Power 5s is a little bit disingenuous in reality. If you look at the record of Mountain West Conference schools versus Power 5 schools over 15 years, their winning percentage is going to be 20% probably. So it's, in reality, we haven't been. Now there is a line in the sand that is a demarcation line, Power 5, Group of 5, so it makes some people uneasy, but it's how we've been operating for 25 years anyway.
Two things about that. First of all, Wyoming still plays those schools in sports like football and other sports too. Why? And what does it mean? For instance, when we go to a Nebraska and play a game, or an Oregon, or when Texas comes here and we go there. What does that mean? And is it fair, for lack of a better word?
Well, first of all, under the current landscape, those competitions will still happen. And in fact, I think they're going to be easier to get in football than they were before, because most of the Power 5 schools have made a decision that the leagues have made decisions they're not playing FCS programs any longer. The Big Ten can't play an FCS, so that opens up opportunities for Wyoming to play. We have a game coming up against Iowa. If in previous years Iowa probably would have played Northern Iowa, but now they're going to play Wyoming. So there's a little bit of an opportunity there.
What does it mean, though, to Wyoming to play a school like that?
It's very important. Our kids love the opportunity. Our fans love the opportunity. And one of these days, we're going to knock one off. And when we do, it's a rallying point for our state. It brings people together. And it's been a while since we've done that. But we're going to do it. I mean, you look back to when we won the Vegas Bowl and beat UCLA. The fact of the matter was UCLA probably didn't want to be in the Vegas Bowl. They weren't focused for that game. But the Wyoming Cowboys went in there and beat them. That was a big day for Wyoming and an important day. And when we went to Tennessee and won, those are big days. Coach Bowles is going to have one of those days soon.
It's been a while since Wyoming's won a conference championship in football.
Yes.
Almost 20 years. Are you satisfied with the progress that you're seeing, not just in football, but truly in your decade here, in all sports, or do you have concerns, Tom?
I'm currently, obviously, football's not good enough. 2-10 last year doesn't cut it. Coach Bull knows that. His staff knows that, and his kids know that. The rest of our sports, I think, are competing well, and we're moving up. If you looked back to the beginning of the Mountain West, all the way through probably 2010, we weren't very competitive. The last 4 or 5 years, we've started to turn the corner, and much of that revolves around the investment the state legislature has made in recent years, the facilities we've invested in. We're starting to turn the corner. We've been in 2 conference championships in soccer. We're a top 3 team in volleyball pretty much year in and year out now. Joe Legursky will get his women's team turned around and we'll be in the top of the conference. Men's basketball won a conference championship. Coach Edwards is recruiting at a level we haven't been able to recruit at for a decade. So I think things are moving, but until we get football going, it doesn't really matter.
It's a linchpin, isn't it?
We have to get football going, and if we're patient, we will.
Do you ever see a playoff scenario where the Power 5 schools have their own playoff system and the rest of the FBS schools have their own playoff system? Has that ever been discussed?
Yes, it has, and it has some momentum. It'll take years to get there, because for the Group of 5 to say we want to do that, they're basically saying, well, now we're really not competing for a national championship. That is hard for a handful of schools like a Boise State who truly have a chance. If they do everything great once in a while, they might be able to move into that Power 5, CFP championship round. But once you say we want our own championship, that's hard for them to swallow. But I think the discussion. Well, I know the discussion is happening, and I think the interest is growing.
What would it mean if CSU left the Mountain West Conference? There's some discussion. Some people think it probably won't happen, but there's certainly discussion on whether or not they might join the Big 12. Wyoming fans who have been here a long time remember Utah, remember BYU, and now we would have to remember CSU. What's your take on that?
Well, I don't think CSU is going to get into the Big 12 in this round. Could they someday get into a Power 5 league? You got to tip your hat to CSU in this regard. They have invested.
Can someone from Wyoming ever do that?
It's hard.
Okay.
It's hard, trust me. But they're investing $250 million into a football stadium. They've grown their football budget or their athletics budget from $25 million to nearly $40 million in a short time frame. They have made it a priority to be good in football and all sports, but they've done well, and they're in a market that has value. They're close to a major market in Denver. They have an enrollment that is nearly 30,000 students, so they have value to a Power 5 league. Will they get in? I don't know.
Is the Mountain West Conference stable right now, in your opinion? Stable enough that we really shouldn't be worrying about teams jumping or leaving or things changing in the next couple years now?
I think we are stable, but you always should worry. You always got to know what's going on, make sure we understand the landscape. I don't think we are going to lose Colorado State, Air Force, Boise State, San Diego State in the near term.
Has Wyoming ever been in any discussions to leave the Mountain West Conference?
No, we have not. I don't think those four will go anywhere in the near term. It is possible someday, so we have to be looking at what do we do if.
I want to talk about capital construction projects. There are certainly many that are happening within the athletic department. At a time, again, where the university as a whole is constrained by budget concerns. The High Altitude Sports Training Center, the continuing renovations of the Arena Auditorium. First of all, give us a quick update on those projects, what your expectations are for those projects, and why they really need to move forward now, even though with budgets as they are.
Yeah, we'll talk about the arena first. The arena, phase 2 of the arena auditorium renovation. Total project cost is $30 million, 16 million, 17 million in phase 2, which is what we're doing now. That project has started and will be finished in 14 months. It will enhance the experience for fans in regard to concessions, restroom, lighting, entry. We don't really have an entrance to the arena. It's kind of a bubble on the prairie is the way I define it. This will give us an entrance. It'll enhance our ticketing opportunities. We'll create a Hall of Fame. We'll have more of a social engagement area. So there's a lot of good things to it. And that project should be done a year from now. High Altitude Performance Center, $44 million project, funded with $24 million in private money and $20 million in state match. That will start at the end of the football season. That piece is almost exclusively a student-athlete development, both academically and athletically, facility that will significantly enhance our ability to recruit and develop student athletes with a football focus.
There are concerns that some have in this country, not just here in Wyoming, that schools are getting into this facilities arms race that's not winnable.
Yes.
That if it's not the High Altitude Performance Center, then it's something else and something bigger. Your thoughts about that and Wyoming's place in that, if, for lack of a better term, battle?
There's no doubt there's an arms race, and there's no doubt that facilities are critical to recruitment and development and retaining student athletes. That's a whole other discussion whether that's right or wrong, but that's the reality. The good thing for UW is we don't have any debt. Most of these schools, Colorado State, for example, take bonding $250 million. They're going to pay $8 to $12 million a year in interest payments. So those are a different challenge than what we have. Are we ever going to win the arms race? No. We can't. We don't have the resources in this state. But you know what? If we don't have great facilities, and I mean really good facilities, we won't recruit. We're just too isolated, too remote. We got to have something that appeals to a young person in any sport, and they recognize and they say, wow, Wyoming is serious about athletics. I'm interested in going there.
You can say that maybe about all sports, perhaps except swimming. Corbett Pool's been on the docket, on the discussion to be remodeled or replaced for a long, long time, and it's a challenge for you.
It is, and it's we have accomplished zero in that regard, and Corbett Pool needs to be replaced. It needs to be, at the very least, renovated. It's a 25-yard pool when the standard is 50 meters. We have no diving. We have no bulkhead. We have high schools, one right down the road with a much nicer facility than we have, and we will start using their facility.
In what context? For meets or for practice?
Both. There's some NCAA legislation we have to be careful of, but we will host events there this year, and we will practice there. We're already practicing there.
Why is that not a long-term solution then?
It could be. Okay. The problem with it is high school needs it, and we need it during the same hours. We're all students first. And so they want to practice in the afternoon, we want to practice in the afternoon, and then they want to open it up for the public in the evening. It becomes a little bit of a challenge. And then there are some NCAA issues. Our student athletes can't cross over with their students.
Sure.
So there is that challenge. But we're going to use it, and that is our short-term, and if it has to be long-term solution, that's what we'll do.
Bottom line, when you take into account operations budget cuts, constraints on capital funding, do you believe athletics is taking its proper proportion of cuts considered to the academic cuts that are facing the university?
Well, obviously, I'm the athletics director, so I'm going to say yes, but I believe that. The University of Wyoming, I believe, needs a vibrant, successful athletic program, especially with Dr. Nichols' plan to grow this institution. If athletics goes backwards, growing the institution, especially with non-resident students, will be very, very difficult.
Let's talk about what's been in the news recently. Some people in Wyoming want the University of Wyoming to look at dropping down a level in football. When you look at budgets for Mountain West Conference performers, Nevada has the lowest budget in the Mountain West Conference. North Dakota has the largest budget in the Big Sky Conference. North Dakota's budget is $3 million a year less than Nevada's budget, and of course Wyoming has a larger budget than Nevada does. Certainly Wyoming would be at risk of losing revenue, but in the end, wouldn't Wyoming have less fiscal responsibility if it did drop a level? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think two things. Dropping down sends a very interesting message to your fan base, especially to your donors who have invested significant dollars into this program. When I talk to fans, now I obviously talk to the fans who are buying season tickets to everything and making donations, and you say, what would you think if our highlight game of the year was Montana State, but we played Montana State's schedule this year, which starts with Bryant, and I also think has Western Oregon, South Dakota State, Eastern Washington, Sacramento State. Does that appeal to you? I'm not driving from Lander to come see that schedule. I think there would be a massive exit of donors and season ticket holders for it. A long period of time. Would they come back? Yeah, I think generationally they would start to come around. Kids would know, they wouldn't know anything different. But you talked about how it bothered you and bothered some fans that there was no more BYU and no more Utah. When there's no more CSU, San Diego State, UNLV, New Mexico, I don't know how important it is to the people of Wyoming.
Okay. Recruiting. It's always been talked about as being a challenge to get good athletes to come to Laramie. What's new in the way the university approaches recruiting the student athletes from across the country?
Well, that's something that the High Altitude Performance Center is going to help us with. A few years ago we sat down and we said, what is our niche? What can we do that no one else can do? And that really is train athletes at elevation, and not just focus on training athletes that are in distance sports, swimming and cross country. How can we use that to our advantage in sports like football? And when we have this facility done, we believe we're going to be able to look at a young man or a young woman and say, you come here and train for 4 years, your chances of being the best you can be are greater than if you do it at sea level. So that's one element. We can't win the sex appeal market. So we can't recruit a kid who has an interest in going to San Diego State or Vegas. But if we find the right niche and we continue to drill down, and the longer the coaches are here at UW, the more they understand what that niche is. Coach Bull's starting to figure it out. Many of our coaches have been here a while, understand how they can be successful, and we've got to just continue to play on that game.
When you reflect, Tom, on 10 years of being here in this position at the University of Wyoming, what are you most proud of?
We are a much more well-respected athletics program within the Mountain West Conference than we were when I arrived, both from an academic perspective, a competitive perspective, how we handle our business, how we host events, facilities, Once we get these 2 facilities done, we're going to have facilities at the top of the Mountain West Conference, which I'm really excited to see how that helps us. But my most proud moments are dealing with young people. I love watching young people grow up and celebrate and have success. And most importantly to me, and I say this in the recruiting pitch, I want you to have a degree, I want you to have a championship ring, and I want you to love the University of Wyoming. And I just had a text from Larry Nance. He was trying to figure out how to get back for the Air Force game, but training camp is getting in the way. I love that. That's the best part for me.
Any mulligans? Any
Oh, yeah.
1 or 2 things you'd want to do over for?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, any 1 or 2 that you'd like to share?
Well, it's pretty simple. When you fire a coach, whether it be Dave Christensen or Heath Schroyer, that didn't work. So you failed. And you know, it's hard to coach here, and I've said this before. Many coaches that fail at Wyoming will succeed somewhere else, but that's my job to figure out which ones can succeed here.
Talk about fundraising. Certainly, the athletic department, maybe more so than other parts of the university, is dependent upon fan support and fundraising, corporate fundraising. But times are tough economically. Any red flags in the wind as far as that goes? And are there other alternatives? For instance, beer sales in the stadium to maybe offset some of that. Yeah. Where are you at with that?
Well, our budget of roughly $35 million, we generate about 55 to 60% of it, what we call self-generated. And so that comes from those resources. And we're starting to see a downturn in ticket sales. We're starting to see a downturn in corporate sponsorships and donations. It's not significant yet, but as I've noticed before in my time in Wyoming, the university and athletics is important to people. They try to maintain their donation, their involvement, but at some point, if they're unemployed or they're looking for shutting down their business, they have to make decisions. I don't think we've hit a lot of that yet, but we may, and then we have to look at alternatives. And we have drilled down into every expense line item in our budget, and we have looked at every revenue stream possible, and we are looking at how can we enhance them, how can we grow them, how can we create new ones. One of them is the beer, wine sales within the arena and the War Memorial Stadium. That's a trustee decision, and we will have those discussions with the trustees over the next few months. And the one thing people got to realize, beer sales in War Memorial Stadium in the arena won't change our financial situation, because you're talking about a couple $100,000, probably a $200 to $250 net after all expenses. But still, $250,000 a year is real dollars, and we have to take a look at it. But we're only going to do it if we believe that we can protect the safety and the experience of our student athletes, our students, and our fans.
Tom Burman, the Director of Intercollegiate Athletics here at the University of Wyoming. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for joining us on Wyoming Chronicle.
Appreciate it.
Man.